Good day and welcome to the Ministry of Tourism special interview program, Tourism One-on-One, where we explore topical issues affecting the tourism sector as we continue to recover from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Kingsley Roberts, your host, and with me today is Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett. Welcome, Minister Bartlett.
Thank you very much.
Today we examine how the tourism sector has been rebounding from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Minister Bartlett, what are your views on the rate of recovery of the global tourism industry?
Well, the rate of recovery has really been at a very rapid clip. The fact of the pent-up demand that's been there resulting from this entrepause when very little happened in the world, and certainly travel literally ceased. The urge to travel again and the demand for leisure activities, and just to break the psychosocial deadlock that seemed to have existed, and to get people back to seeing each other again and operating on a physical plane again, to hug and, and generally to relate to each other in a convivial way. That has pushed the demand. However, the supply that this demand is requiring is the problem. And so the extent to which this recovery is going to be linear is a function of how we can manage the supply chain disruptions that we've had.
So in light of those challenges, what do you think could be done to enhance the recovery of the global tourism?
Well, I think there are a number of things that we have to do. We in Jamaica took the position very early because of our own appreciation of these type of disruptions and what are the action that we need to take to, mitigate the impact of it, to recover and manage. We established our supply chain task force because we were concerned that tourism would have this problem. We saw it in terms of the human capital disruption and the fact that in the industry now we're experiencing negative employment, where a number of our hotels are woefully short-staffed. The implications of all of that are dire. We see that airlines have not been able to come back in the way that they did because there's shortage of crew, there's shortage of stewardesses and pilots. Airports are not able to give 100% service either because there has been this human capital disruption. So managing that and enabling efficiency to flow, and tourism is driven heavily by efficiencies, as you know. It's about experiences and people consume, they consume. Tourism is the most consumption-driven industry in the world. That's what we do. We travel to consume. And if the products aren't there to consume, then there is a problem. So agriculture is a big area. Food and food security is at the heart of this, what I call more linear recovery. So that problem is existing in some countries, and knock on wood, Jamaica is not quite there yet, but we see that there are signs in the air. So building, therefore, capacity to have our agricultural sector step to the plate. The farmers getting the production levels up, getting in the fertilizers and the seedlings and so on, and really going hard at producing to get back our manufacturers to produce, the canned goods, the nectars and the juices and the jams and the jellies that the industry needs to get our transportation sector up and going and strong, to get your communications, all the elements that feed into tourism, that make tourism happen, must be brought back to full extent. And the challenge then is to coordinate all of that effort, because for tourism to recover fully, it requires everybody. It requires all hands on deck because we are not an entity unto ourselves. We only happen because all these other key elements come together seamlessly.
So how crucial is tourism to the recovery of the global economy overall?
Well, tourism has been known to be the most resilient of all industries, and it bounces back faster than every other industry because of the immediate convertibility properties of the industry. That is to say, the dollar comes immediately. The plane lands into the country, the dollar moves straight into the pockets of all the average person. When the ship brings the cruise passengers in, they are off immediately. The dollar goes into the pockets of the ordinary people. So that process of immediacy enables foreign exchange to happen for countries. And that consumption, which is a huge part of what the industry is, as I said, it gets effective immediately. So as they consume, they pay. As they pay, the revenue comes. And that's why economies benefit from tourism recovery, because of that instant convertibility.
So it will basically facilitate it and fuel the overall economic recovery.
Right, because all of the key parts that make tourism happen are the elements of an economy: manufacturing, agriculture, transportation, medical services, banking services, insurance services, telecommunication services, and then the ordinary guy who deals with maintenance and landscaping and what have you. So it's a whole range. And then the airports, and the airports is a huge part of that employment matrix. It brings thousands of people together. For example, the Montego Bay Airport is the largest single employer of persons in the entire Western area. And when you go there, you see, it's all the handlers on the ramp. It's all the airline pilots and the players. It is a whole range of service providers now for food and confectionery and shopping of various types. Then it is the red caps who do the actual movie. Then you have the custom officers and the immigration officers and the security personnel, and then the transport and the transport people. So it's a whole range of people who are employed right there. And so we think that the stimulation of an economy is affected by the return of tourism.
So how is the recovery of the regional tourism sector progressing?
Well, the regional sector is recovering well. As a matter of fact, the World Travel and Tourism Council and the UNWTO, the two main gatekeepers of tourism in the world, have all indicated that the Caribbean is the fastest region of recovery in the world, and that Jamaica, Dom Rep, and I think Curacao are the three strongest recovering countries in the world. So that's a good sign in terms of what the Caribbean tourism recovery is. That's strong recovery for any area, especially that we are weakly resourced, as you know, and some of us also have low vaccination levels.
Right. So that comes against the background of initial predictions that the Caribbean region, countries like Jamaica, were among the countries that were at greatest risk. Jamaica was singled out at some point by the UN.
Right. Yeah. And for good reason, because we're highly tourism dependent. Right. And so the vulnerabilities of tourism will be reflected in our broader vulnerabilities. So the fact that we have built the capacity to bounce back, that we were resilient ourselves, has served to our benefit. The things that we did during the pandemic, for example, were examples to the world as to how to manage and mitigate a disruption, whatever it is. And one of the good things about establishing the Global Tourism Resilience and Crisis Management Center at the University of the West Indies is that it gave an opportunity for some academic rigor and for research and study in the area, and for us to look at how other disruptions, because in the last 50 years, the world has had 10 mega disruptions that have affected tourism in particular. Yeah. We call them black swans. And that has caused the upending of tourism, but the recovery has been swift and the growth thereafter has been phenomenal. And that's what tourism has as a big property. Its resilience and its own capacity to bounce back fast and grow exponentially.
All right. So to what do you attribute the steady rate of recovery of the local tourism sector? You've touched on a few of them, but
right. The fact is, first of all, that we had that what we call the sense of the longer view. So we were able to look down the road to see what was happening. If you recall, as early as January 2020, when we saw what was happening in China and Italy in particular, we established our crisis management task force that started to look at the disruption. And by March 2020, when the WHO announced that we had a pandemic, Jamaica established its task force on recovery. So with that, we were looking now at building out all the protocols and working with health and everybody else in developing a very robust set of protocols for tourism. We started to delve in the science of it and understanding what was needed to mitigate the PPEs that were required for our workers. We then trained and we use dollars to provide support, care packages and other support. We went in and we also accredited the entities in tourism that were COVID compliant based on a whole series of compliance arrangements that we established. And then we established the resilient corridor that provided our own bubble, to enable a safer experience for the visitor and a reduction in the rate of infection. So we were able to do all of that and to use technology well to create access to the destination. The Jam COVID platform, which enabled for a seamless application and entry into the country, was useful. The use of touchless sanitation equipment and so on. All of that enabled seamlessness in our activity. So we benefited from all of that. And so the recovery has been a function of confidence that the market has in us as a destination, how we have managed this whole COVID process. And for that, I have to give credit to our Prime Minister and the cabinet ministers, in particular Minister Tufton and the team from Health, Foreign Affairs and Security, local government. I could name all because everybody came in and played their part. The Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, doubtlessly were champions in all of this. And it really was a teamwork. I have never seen the sector more united and more, at one in terms of what we do and the cohesion and the policy, cohesiveness that we were able to achieve was absolutely unprecedented. So if I should be asked again anytime in the world, what caused us to be able to bounce back so fast and do so well, those are the factors.
That brings us to the end of our program. Thanks for joining us today, Minister Bartlett.
Thank you so much, Kingsley.
It was a pleasure having you back on our program. Thanks to our viewers for tuning in. Take care and see you soon.